estimating fractions. So you're going to estimate a fraction by, like we round whole numbers or round decimals, you're basically rounding them. But on a fraction, you're going to round it, and it's either going to become a 0, a half, or a whole. And so this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to give you a couple examples. If you had the fraction 2 over 8, look at your denominator and think about what's half of 8. Half of 8 is 4. So if you had 4 over 8, that would be a half. That would be equal to a half. So once you get that number, look at the numerator and see, is that numerator less than 4, close to 4, or greater than 4? If that numerator is less than 4, for example, 2 over 8, then you would round this fraction to a 0. If that numerator was 4 or 5, right in here, you would round that fraction to a half. If the numerator was further up, like 5 or 6 or 7, you would round the fraction to 1. Okay, so let me give you a couple more examples so you can see that. So you're always going to round to 0, a half, or 1. You don't have to do anything other than that level. Okay, let's look at 4 over 7. Well, half of 7 is about 3.5. Okay, so between 3 and 4 is about half of 7. If I look at this, 4, it falls within that. So I would round 4/7 to 1/2. All right, let's look at another one. Let's say that I had 5/7. Okay, half of 7 is 3 or 4. This is greater, so if it was 5/7, that fraction would be rounded to 1 whole. So when you see a problem, you're always going to look at the denominator and see what's about half of it, and that's going to be your gauge as to how to round it. So let's look at a problem. Let's say we have 4, get my pencil again. Let's say we have 4 and 1/6, this is a mixed number, plus 5 and 5/9. Okay? So first of all, we're going to look at, we have our whole number, but we're going to look at rounding. We're going to estimate these two fractions, adding them together. So let's start with 1/6. Half of 6, and I'm going to change my color so you can see it a little better. Half of 6 is 3. Well, I have a 1 up there. 1 isn't close to 3, so that means 1/6 would be rounded to a 0. So now this mixed number just becomes a 4 because the fraction is a 0. Look at this one. Half of 9, if I take half of 9, that's about 4 or 5, right? Kind of in between. So 5 would be the halfway mark. So instead of 5/9, I'm going to round this to a half. So now I have a new combination. This is my estimate. 4 plus 5 is 9. Nothing plus a half is a half. I just combined them by doing my estimate, okay? All I'm doing is estimating, rounding, so I can figure it out without having to find common denominators, without having to figure out all the combinations of what I need to do with my fractions. I'm just estimating into a 0, a half, or a 1. All right, let's take another example. And you can pause the recording once I write it down and then think about it and try it and then check the answer, okay? So let's go with 5 and 8 over 9 plus 3 and 7 over 8, okay? You can pause the recording and see what you think you would change 8 over 9 to, either 0, a half, or 1. And what would you change 7 over 8 to? 0, a half, or 1. Go ahead and pause it and then turn it back on, and I'm going to work it out for you. Okay, so the 5 stays the same. Half of 9 is about 4 or 5, and I'm way over that with an 8. So that's going to take this one to a whole. So plus a whole. This is going to be added together. I'm just going to put that there so you can see it. Okay, plus, now I'm going to take 7/8. Half of 8 is 4. Well, 7 is greater than 4, so this also becomes a 1. So I have 3 plus 1. These get changed to that. This gets changed to that. All right, so 5 plus 1 is 6. 3 plus 1 is 4. So together, they make a whole number without any fractions of 10. That is my estimate. So all I'm doing is converting the fractions and adding them into the mixed number if there is a whole number there. If I come up with a 1, I add 1 to that. If I come up with a half, I put a half next to it. If I come up with a 0, I just leave it blank and I add my numbers together. So you're going to do this. You're going to look at this, watch this video. You're going to read on your packet 3-7 in 7th grade, estimate with fractions. Read the top part, and then you're going to do the work on the next page.